So director, writer, producer Rob Reiner and his wife were allegedly killed by their son. And there's a lot going into this story. From what I understand, their son was struggling with drug addiction, at least in the past, and also had mental health issues as well. And I think what's really interesting about all of this is the way that people are responding to it, right? So we'll bring this in here for a little bit. And I do just want to show you the response that's being made by Donald Trump, and also the response that is being made by a Susie Wiles, who is Trump's chief of staff. Donald Trump is having a really bad week, and more people are starting to call out his BS. So this is Rob Reiner's son, and he is arrested, and they are saying that he is the one who killed his parents. Listen to this.
The son of the Hollywood power couple, Rob and Michelle Reiner, now awaiting charges for their murders. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. In less than 2 hours, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office will hold a news conference while the Reiner son, Nick, is behind bars, suspected of stabbing his parents to death inside their L.A. home on Sunday. But more than likely, you won't see Nick in court. His attorney says he's just not medically cleared to appear before a judge today. It comes as fans and friends mourn the death of the couple, including former First Lady Michelle Obama, who says she and Barack were supposed to see the Reiners the day they were murdered.
They're not deranged or crazed. What they have always been are passionate people in a time when there's not a lot of courage going on. They were the kind of people who were ready to put their actions behind what they cared about. And they cared about their family, and they cared about this country, and they cared about fairness and equity. And that is the truth. I do know them.
Our Melissa Dawn is in downtown Los Angeles outside the courthouse and joins me now for more. So, Melissa, what do we expect to learn at this news conference?
Hey, Kira. So we are anticipating hearing from the Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman. He's going to be joined by the LAPD chief. This is where they're expected to share more details and really paint a picture as to what they know so far happened Sunday afternoon to the Reiners. Now, specifically, we are anticipating formal charges to be filed against Nick Reiner. That is Michelle and Rob Reiner's 32-year-old son, who is right now booked in a downtown Los Angeles jail just a few blocks away from where we are. He is being held without bail. But at this point, we have heard from his attorney saying that he is not medically cleared yet to appear in front of a court. So this may delay some of those procedural hearings. But again, what's really important is in a few hours, we are expected to hear from the DA. And that's where we're anticipating formal charges against Nick Reiner for murdering his parents.
Now, let's talk about this for a little bit here. From what I understand, there are reports that the family were at a recent party, and there was, I guess, an argument, a disagreement between Nick and them at a recent party. And I don't know if that led to this allegedly, because again, like I said, it's two sides to a story. They are saying that he is the one who did it. But again, two sides to a story. Let's keep that in mind. But I will say this, for those who are not aware who Rob Reiner is responsible for giving us movies like Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, Wolf of Wall Street. He made some memorable, great movies. Stand By Me is probably still one of my favorite movies. I think that's a classic, right? And I didn't always agree with some of the things that Rob Reiner said on Twitter, because especially when it came to Russia and Ukraine, it seemed like he was pro-war in certain, some certain instances. He would not criticize the Biden administration at all, even when they were blatantly in the wrong. So he was basically a blue no matter who. But just because I disagree with some of the comments that he had on X, on social media, that doesn't mean that I'm going to say woohoo and like cheer for what happened to him. Now, that's my position. Now, I seem to remember that after Charlie Kirk was killed, I said the same thing. I said, don't cheer this on. What happened to Charlie Kirk can happen to anyone. And any other podcaster that you may like. So you don't like Charlie Kirk, but you do like other ones. And instead of him, it could have been someone else. So I was consistent about that. And I seem to remember Donald Trump and many others also said during that time that it's wrong for people to cheer on his death. It's wrong for people not to. Remember, they were coming after people on social media. They were trying to get people fired from their jobs because of what they said on social media about Charlie Kirk's death. Remember that? So now Donald Trump is getting a taste of his own medicine because now some of his own supporters are coming after him for the comments that he made about Rob Reiner. Max Burns said, I don't want to hear another sanctimonious word from Republicans who accused Democrats of not showing enough sadness when Charlie Kirk died. Donald Trump's message about Rob and Michelle Reiner's death is a monstrosity. So let me show you what Donald Trump said. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, something referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. So, first of all, it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate coming from the president of the United States. And could you have imagined if a Democrat politician would have made a statement like that about Charlie Kirk after he passed away? And to be fair, the Democrat politicians did not go that route. But this is a lot of hypocrisy. Now, of course, he was questioned about this. I want you to hear what he says here. I don't think this is any better.
A number of Republicans have denounced your statement on Truth Social after the murder of Rob Reiner. Do you stand by that post?
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. He said he knew it was false. In fact, it's the exact opposite, that I was a friend of Russia, controlled by Russia. You know, it was the Russia hoax. He was one of the people behind it. I think he hurt himself in career-wise. He became like a deranged person, Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all in any way, shape, or form. I thought he was very bad for our country. Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about, right? He said, well, I didn't like him. I didn't really Yeah, well, there were many that didn't like Charlie Kirk either. And this is what I've been saying about Donald Trump. Rules for thee, but not for me. He can say what he wants to say. He can do what he wants to do, but you better not think about it. It's inappropriate. And a lot of people are calling it out. And I want to go ahead and bring this up here. When I say that Trump is shamed, I want you to see all the people who, these are Trump supporters. This is Brillen Hollyhan. Remember, he's the guy that's supposed to be in line to become the next Charlie Kirk. Listen to what he said about it.
No, just no. This is not the way. We can't with one hand call out the left when they laugh at and celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination just a few weeks ago, but on the other hand, normalize, condone, and tell people to just get a sense of humor when the president makes commentary like this. The situation was tragic. A drug-addicted son killed his mother and father. Did that father have horrible political opinions that were dead wrong? Yes. Did that father make comments about Trump that were insensitive and wrong? Absolutely. Is this a moment to kick them while they're down? Absolutely not. We know better than anybody what political violence is like. They tried to kill Trump twice, and they killed Charlie Kirk. This should be a moment of unity, a moment of our nation coming together to mourn, not a moment to make light of a situation, not a moment to kick them down, certainly not a moment to make the situation political in the slightest. We can't appear to be morally superior when the left does it to us, but the second the roles are reversed and they're down, we do not kick them. We do not act like the left. That is not going to be our party. These commentary, it's frankly disgusting. No.
There you go. He's supposed to be the next Charlie Kirk. He supported Donald Trump, condemns what he says. There are more here. Listen to this one. Emily Jashinsky. How do you say her name? Jashinsky from Breaking Points. I guess she was a part of the Megyn Kelly wrap-up show on Sirius. I want you to listen to comments that came in about what Trump said about Rob Reiner. Again, Megyn Kelly conservative, Emily Jashinsky conservative. The conservative show. Listen to the callers.
Jill in Indiana, you're on the Megyn Kelly wrap-up show. What's on your mind this afternoon?
Hi, just sort of glomming on here, but it matters to me what Donald Trump said, and I'm deeply disappointed. If we value human life as Christians and Americans, then this stuff, it's indefensible to sort of gloat like right after someone dies like that, just for having a difference of opinion.
I'm very disappointed in President Trump. I voted for him 3 times. I still love him as my president, but it was wrong what he did. He should have just kept his mouth shut after the first paragraph. I don't know why he had to bring that up. It was a tragedy, and I didn't like Rob Reiner as a person. Politics. He was really, really sometimes very virulent from what he was saying about the right, and particularly about Trump too, of course. However, I mean, it really hurts me to the core what happened to him. And I think as a human being, anyone has to be just sad about what happened and not bring politics into it. And Trump just doesn't know when to stop.
I would just like to say that we have a God-fearing president, and he talks about the power of prayer and praying for victims and on and on and on. So let's act like that, President Trump. I voted for you. This is the most sacred season of the year. Turn the other cheek like Christ would.
I will tell you that I've been a Republican my entire life. I voted for Trump twice. I don't consider myself a MAGA Republican, but I do consider myself a conservative. And I think this comment that he made, this post, reminds me a little bit of when Walter Cronkite made an announcement talking about the Vietnam War to the American people, saying if we, and Lyndon Johnson said, if I've lost Walter, I've lost the country. I really think that Trump's comment has just officially put that nail in the coffin.
I just got to say, I mean, we're not conducting a scientific poll here on the Megyn Kelly wrap-up show, but the callers today, our phone lines have genuinely not lit up like this before.
So this is what I was saying. And some people, online, they were asking, well, why is it that people are willing to call him out now? Like, why are they noticing this now? And one of those people was Sagar in Jetty. I just want to show you what he said here. He said, Trump's Reiner comment broke through the normie firewall for reasons I don't fully understand, but it's a signal that his specter of untouchability is beginning to fall apart. I'll explain why this is happening. Because Donald Trump is not actually accomplishing what he ran on. The economy is crap. People still can't afford shit. The prices are still increasing. And more people have started to notice, and the veil is off, that Trump, he bent the knee to Israel. That he's willing to do whatever Benjamin Netanyahu wants to do, that he works for Israel first, not for the American people. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene resign and jump the ship. There's others to follow, by the way, according to the list that's been put out. There's a number more that are going to leave and going to resign. People have jumped the ship. So when the president is not accomplishing, these things that he said, these things that he said he was going to do. And people see the economy is still crap and actually has gotten worse. And they saw it was bad under Biden as well. When people see that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you said you would do for their everyday Americans, then people start to pay closer attention to the shit that you say. That's what's happening. It's more noticeable now. Now, it's not like Trump just began speaking this way. No, he's been speaking this way. And sometimes has said things even worse. But like I said, when working class white people start to get affected, that's when things will change. And that's what's happening. We see that happening with the white farmers that were complaining on multiple networks. They're like, yo, these tariffs are hitting us really hard. I told you, that's what it would take. So now people are paying attention to him more, like, what the hell is he doing? Thomas Massey is another one. Of course, calling it out. Regardless about how you felt about Rob Reiner, this is inappropriate and disrespectful discourse about a man who was just brutally murdered. I guess my GOP colleagues, the VP and the White House staff, will just ignore it because they're afraid. I challenge anyone to defend it. This is what we were talking about, right? So a lot of them are afraid of Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is also being shamed, not just for this, but because of this Vanity Fair article, this interview, which is a series of 11 interviews that was done with Susie. Let's go ahead and bring this in. Susie Wiles sat down with Vanity Fair for 11 interviews. I don't know why. And then tried to say that they misquoted her and she didn't say these things, these negative things about Donald Trump and his administration. But then the guy who interviewed her was able to play the audio recording, proving that she is also a liar. Let's go ahead and get into it. It is wild out here in these streets.
A revealing new interview with really the most powerful person in President Trump's White House beyond him, Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, commenting and going there on a wide range of topics, it seems, with Vanity Fair in a new series of interviews, from the handling of the Epstein investigation to her assessment of the big names on Donald Trump's team. Let's get to CNN's Elena Treen, who is at the White House. There seems to be a lot in there, Elena. What is your big takeaway?
I mean, look, I've covered the president and I've also covered Susie Wiles for years now, Kate, and this is one of the most candid interviews and stories that she's offered, interviews she's offered really from the entire time I've done that. This is incredibly candid, some of the things that she was admitting, because I will tell you too, Wiles is someone who often likes to operate kind of in the shadows and quietly. She doesn't like to draw attention to herself. And that's why I think some of what people are waking up and reading this morning is so stunning to hear about. But let me get into some of the main things that I found very notable from what Chris Whipple, who works with Vanity Fair, detailed from their conversations. One is that Wiles referred to President Trump as someone having a, quote, alcoholic personality. She also talked a lot about the vice president, J.D. Vance, someone who I should note, had this conversion that Whipple noted as well from never Trumper to a MAGA acolyte. Susie Wiles essentially said that change, that conversion has been, quote, sort of political. And she said the vice president has been a, quote, conspiracy theorist for a decade. She also talked about Russell Vought. He is the White House budget chief, but he's also, of course, one of the architects of that notorious Project 2025 conservative blueprint for the future of the Republican Party, something that Trump had previously, of course, disavowed. She argued that Vought is, quote, a right-wing absolute zealot. And then she also went to a number of different things. One, she talked about Pam Bondi, the attorney general, someone who was one of her closest friends, I should note, in this administration. She argued that Bondi, quote, completely whiffed the handling of the Epstein files. She also talked about how the president, who came in and offered a series of pardons to really roughly 1,000 people who were convicted for their crimes on January 6th, she essentially admitted that she had urged the president not to pardon those who had committed violent crimes on January 6th and on the Capitol attack. She also talked about how she disagreed with him sometimes when it came to tariffs, saying that she had urged him to delay some of the tariffs that he ultimately announced. and it goes on. There's a lot of other areas where she kind of talks about kind of disagreeing with him, but also ultimately her role is as a facilitator rather than, past White House chiefs that we've seen, notably people like John Kelly during the president's first administration, who at times tried to hold him back. She sees as her job trying to kind of shape what he does, but also not preventing him from doing what he wants to do.
Pause for a second. Long story short, Susie threw all of them under the bus. And I mean all of them. But yeah, in that article, and it's long, but I read it, she said that Donald Trump had an alcoholic personality. She was against his tariffs. She said in this interview, she was against his tariffs. She called out JD Vance. She said Pam Bondi basically messed up the Epstein files release. Like, it was basically like a confession moment from Real World. I don't know if you guys ever watch MTV's The Real World. It was kind of like that, where they get you in that one room and you start talking about how you really feel about people that are in the house that you're living with. The 7 strangers put in a house. And it felt like that. Like, I felt like what I was reading was not something I was supposed to know about, right? Like things that would be kept behind the scenes. And people are asking, well, why would she do that? Well, one, she is denying that she said these things, but she's already been busted with the audio recording. And then 2, it's like I said before, it's a sinking ship. And I think she knows that too. Now, this woman also is very pro-Israel. She has connections to Israel. She has also been in the room with some of these conversations that Donald Trump has had with Benjamin Netanyahu. So don't think that she's like some do-gooder because she's spilling the tea. I think if anything, she's probably looking out for the rest of her career, or how she can kind of maybe, I don't know, get off this boat too before it sinks. But they all see what's really coming. It's a sinking ship. Let's continue on a little bit more here.
Very notable quote as well that stuck out to me, just given the context of what's very much in the news right now, is Venezuela. She admitted publicly that one of the goals of this administration and the president is actually to see regime change in Venezuela and oust Nicolas Maduro. I should note that is not what the White House line has been on this. The White House line has been that this is all about trying to crack down on narco terrorists and illegal drug trafficking. She essentially said this on Venezuela. She said, quote, "He wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle. And people way smarter than me on that say that he will." Again, a major contradiction in what we've heard from the White House on all of this. And the last thing I just want to quickly point you to.
And that's foreign intel to say what he's going to do in the future, that he's going to continue to blow up those boats, right? The fishermen boats in the Caribbean. So this woman basically told everything. And I really do feel like you don't do something like that unless you're trying to get off the boat. You're trying to get off of this ship because you know what's coming.
There's a lot in this. I do encourage our audience to actually go and read these very lengthy and detailed articles from Vanity Fair. But she talked about retribution, and she said that she had some sort of agreement with the president that she didn't want him to be focused on score settling, that she was going to give him 90 days and then he kind of had to move on from it. But she also acknowledged that some of the recent indictments we've seen against some of the president's political foes, people like the former FBI director James Comey or the New York Attorney General Letitia James, both people who we've seen this Trump administration now bring indictments against. She admitted that, yeah, that kind of is political. She said the Letitia James indictment specifically, she said that one you could call retribution. And so incredible stuff in here from Wiles, who, again, one of the most powerful people, if not the most powerful person in this White House, apart from Trump, being very, very candid in this interview, Kate.
A lot more to come.
Yeah, a lot more to come. So let me show you what Susie said, because of course, this morning, this article dropped early in the morning. And so she already put out a statement. The article published early this morning is a disingenuously framed hit piece on me and the finest president, White House staff, and cabinet in history. Okay. Significant context was disregarded, and much of what I and others said about the team and the president was left out of the story. I assume after reading it that this was done to paint an overwhelmingly chaotic and negative narrative about the president and our team. The truth is that the Trump White House has already accomplished more in 11 months than any other president has accomplished in 8 years. And that is due to the unmatched leadership and vision of President Trump, for whom I have been honored to work for the better part of the decade. So that's her statement. She says it's not true, But then she got outed because here's the thing. The journalist who did the interview, his name is Chris Whipple. Now, don't get me wrong, Chris Whipple is, a strong vote blue no matter who, will not criticize the Democratic Party. Got to put that out there. At the same time, where Susie messed up is that I guess she totally forgot that she was recorded. It is not uncommon sometimes for journalists to record you when they are interviewing you, so that way they can just go back on their own time and play the tape and write the article. So now they do have to tell you, that you're being recorded, get your permission, etc. But I want you to hear what they said earlier today. And this is Brian Stelter, who somehow weaseled his way back onto CNN for this discussion. But he's talking about why it's not a hit piece because of how strict Vanity Fair can be. Listen to this.
Not that she thought she was not on the record, because she knows the whole time Chris Whipple is an author who writes for Vanity Fair. So there's no excuse. But maybe it's one of the situations where you're talking for hours, you're talking in a really casual way, maybe you forget the tape recorder is rolling. I'm wondering if that's the best way to explain some of this material, because it is so honest and all on the record.
But she is a deeply savvy operator. This
Very
is someone
savvy,
who has
right.
been around politics for a really long time.
Right.
And you would think that she's someone that knows. At one point in the article, they reference her doing her laundry while she's talking about the divides of the MAGA movement or whatever.
Right.
And you would think even in that
Even
context,
then, yeah.
she would understand. And particularly given the this administration's approach to the media.
Right.
All right.
Not that she thought she was not on the record.
Yeah, and I know because I've been interviewed. I've been doing interviews from journalists for my documentary, and first thing they ask is, "Do I have your permission to record this so that I can go?" But like they tell you, that you're being recorded. And I don't know how long this interview took, but it's a series of interviews. So I could imagine this probably took a long time. But Susie just basically was really embarrassed. She embarrassed the hell out of herself to put out that statement. And then, of course, Chris Whipple goes, "Okay, here's the recording. Here's the audio recording of you saying these things." So it's a sinking ship. People are coming after Trump from all different sides now, including those that are a part of his administration. It's wild. It's crazy. JD Vance even said earlier at a press conference today, he's like, "I guess I shouldn't do any more interviews with Vanity Fair or with corporate media." Right. So look, sinking ship. And I would say that interview that Susie had with Vanity Fair, that basically just put the stamp on the envelope. It was signed, sealed, and delivered. It's not just the comment about Rob Reiner. That's just one little blip on the radar. It's a number of things. And when you add all those things together, you just have one big chaotic equation that nobody wants to solve. It's a mess. It's a mess. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.